I love these kinds of conversations because you both come from very different organizations, although you did manage to dress rather similarly today. Kind of the cool, hip, executive, forward-looking tech. I just want to point that out. But we're going to see how you are using AI with your customer experiences. First, Nilesh, WIPRO, for those who do not know, because we have a global audience here, tell us about your role in cloud services and how you help service other companies.
Right. So WIPRO has been in the industry for about 75 years now. The company provides IT, consulting, and BPO services. It's a large organization present in multiple countries. My role really at WIPRO is to look at customers' problems, solve them with modern technology, leveraging AI, automation, and analytics.
All right. Ash, we know what HSBC does, a legacy company in a legacy business being banking, but it's not a business that we often associate with AI. So tell us about your role there and the kind of team that you manage.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So as you say, most people know HSBC. We're one of the world's largest banking and financial services. We have approximately 40 million customers. We operate across retail, commercial, trade finance, investment banking, and markets and securities services. So that's my area. So my role is to lead the AI effort in the markets and security services business. That means pure AI and applied AI research for trading, for sales, for quantitative finance. It involves defining and advocating best practices for the use of AI. A lot of what we do is not about owning artificial intelligence in some centralized function. It's about empowering people to better do their jobs using AI, but also to develop and own it themselves. We're quite lucky that we have a lot of quite technical folk in our business.
How large is your team, may I ask? Do you have many, many people on your team?
It's not huge, and that's very intentional. So we have a core team of researchers, machine learning, operations engineers. We have some risk people. We have some product owners. But it's not huge because it's more about enabling than owning.
And also, being a tech team, you're using automation in order to take away some of the really tedious work that had to be done by people in the past. Nilesh, I want to dive immediately into one of your big projects because it's something that we may all have some sort of experience with or see eventually. Can you tell us what you're doing at the Toronto airport?
So, I'll kind of say in this way that looking at operations transformation, and this is where the customer is looking at how do we transform our business, bring in more digital, especially after COVID. The priorities remain customer experience, how to better it. So WIPRO is engaging in a way where we're able to advise, look at customers' challenges, how they're able to do business better, and then they're in a constant phase where they're wanting to understand how their end customers are doing, right? So in this case, there are a number of solutions that we've looked at, to bring in those efficiencies, to bring in more digitalization in the business, and some of the things like process mining, for example. That's how we started with, essentially to give them insights on where the gaps are, how could you do business better, where are the inefficiencies, and then going into more, giving them details about should you really re-engineer the kind of work that you do, should you bring in more automation, should you look at outsourcing and things like that. So that has been some of the components which have worked very well. Of course, data is king. There is a lot of data to work with, and they continue to face challenges on manual labor versus, should we really automate? So those are the kind of things that we've been doing with customers.
Could it make the experience more pleasant for those of us who fly through Toronto in the future?
Sure. Yes, it is.
Ash, banks have undergone extraordinary transformation to stay relevant, over the past 100 years. And definitely we all remember going to the banks in our neighborhood. I remember going there, and the relationship consisted of maybe a lollipop for me and maybe a toaster for my parents. How do you maintain or use automation with your teams to maintain that great customer experience, which people still expect to be personal, even as you're dealing with 40 million customers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic dance that we have to do. As you mentioned, over the last 50, 100 years, almost everything in banking has been transformed by technology, whether it's the pipes that connect the banks and the financial institutions together, whether it's the channels, whether it's the ledgers themselves. Everything has changed except the importance of that relationship. The way I like to think of it is kind of the confluence of the power of technology, the volume of data, the smarts of AI have driven banking through this Blockbuster to Netflix transition, where we can use technology to better service our customers. We move away from the older model of let's create products and push them out to people towards let's look at our customers and our clients, understand what their needs are, and because we're so big, they're diverse and they're complex. We need data and intelligence to do that. And let's service their needs and understand what products and facilities they need. So it's been a huge change.
And for the record, banking long preceded Blockbuster and will long outlive Blockbuster. So this is a great example of how you need to stay relevant. And I just want to follow up by saying a reminder that you not only have to maintain a personal relationship with all these customers, but the customers are in such different places. And a relationship means different things in these different countries and locations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say our core proposition is connecting people globally. That's what we do. It's interesting that you mention digital and even relationship means different things to different people. It absolutely does. There's a huge subset of our customers that want a very human, personal experience, and that's something we pride ourselves on offering and don't ever see compromising. But there are some, particularly on the financial market side, who want an efficient transactional experience, which from a user experience design perspective, from a technology offering perspective, must look very different. And we have to cater to all of the above.
We have a great audience question for Nilesh, and that is, how has WIPRO utilized digital twins to improve efficiency?
So, in the COVID world, digital twin, concept kind of evolved, if I may say, right? Operational efficiencies via the analysis of the twin. When we look at, for example, people who are not able to travel because of restrictions, there are customers who are not able to visit you because of restrictions. How do we then ensure that there is still similar customer experience, that we're able to, provide similar operational efficiencies that we're able to provide? So what are those tools and technologies that we can bring in to ensure that, the experience that the customer is expecting to get is still, consistent? So those are the kind of, things that the teams get into, work closely with the customers and deliver results.
So perhaps the answer is the digital twin, but I want to ask you both a question, but follow up with Nilesh first. What kind of automation has had the greatest impact on customer satisfaction?
So if I look at customer satisfaction or even customer experience, the primary thing that customers are looking at is how their end customers feel. What do they feel? Of course, in the last 2 years, data has significantly grown, so manual processes are difficult to handle, because, of course, you need so many people. So technology, should we go for a short-term solution, which could be things like RPA, or should we go more long-term? Some customers think of ERP consolidation, for example. Some are looking at AI, chatbots, virtual assistants. So depending on the scenario, or the challenges that the customer is facing, there are multiple solutions. But end of the day, it's all about how do we bring in that customer experience, provide that round-the-clock support through, let's say, a virtual assistant kind of solution, which reduces a lot of human effort in the backend, right? But still solves number of queries for the end customer quickly.
Yeah. Ash, I want to ask you the same question, but it's interesting that you said round-the-clock support, because again, wasn't that long ago, 50 years ago, you thought, okay, you can go to your bank between 9 and 4, and then you're out of luck after that, and now it has to be 24/7. So let me ask you the same question. Can you share some of the specific automation solutions that have had the greatest impact, positive impact on your customer relationships?
Absolutely, yes. I'll keep it fairly general and really say intelligent automation in general. And there's two faces to that, right? Often when we think about the customer...
By the way, thank you for saying that. That was not rehearsed, but intelligent automation is what we're all about today.
But it's so true, right? Like, often we think about the customer-facing side of things, which is very important, and that's... I'll come on to that, but probably more important is automating our operations at scale. You can't service 40 million customers across the globe 24/7 if you can't scale your automation. And you have to be intelligent about that, and you need to use any advances in technology that you can use to do that while keeping fair, ethical, and transparent, which I'm sure we'll come on to, is hugely important. So I think that's had the biggest impact in our ability to scale. Also, though, those same techniques and that same technology helps us better understand our customers. Mm-hmm. And that's what changes the experience from this, I am a consumer of banking product, to I'm working with my bank to understand my needs and how I want to live my life or grow my business. And that's been a huge change for us and our customers.
So the specific types of automation, Nilesh talked about, AI and chat services and such. Do you employ all of these things?
Certainly all of those listed. And I would stress that point on relationships. Some of our customers want to speak to a human and always will. And certainly for the foreseeable, we're going to give them that because we pride ourselves in those relationships. But also we have those customers who say, when I'm at various times, I'm going to ask for a piece of information and I just want it as quickly as possible. And they shouldn't have to wait for a person for that, and they don't want to wait for a person for that. They just want that information. So if that comes through a web app, an API, a chat bot, there's all sorts of things we can and do use to deliver those sorts of services too.
I have to bring up a topic that has basically come up in every single business conversation and interview that I've done over the last year, and that is the workforce challenges, hiring, finding enough people. How are you using automation to help navigate that? Nilesh?
So what we are doing at WIPRO is, few things. From an employee engagement perspective, we are constantly wanting to give our teams opportunities to learn new skills. What that means is, really understanding if, from an automation point of view, what efficiencies could automation in overall bring into the way they work, the way they deliver results to the customers, right? And this is where we've seen people are wanting to be more engaged if they are, getting to learn. Of course, prior to that, what we are also doing is trying to understand what's in it for them, right? Because that's the first thing they're going to look at. At the same time, who these people are, who these buyers are, what are their roles, right? So these are the kind of things. At the same time, flexibility in working is also another thing that we are kind of bringing in. Of course, COVID brought a lot of remote working. Now we are back 3 days into office, 2 days remote, but there are also additional things like, traditional work weeks that people work mm-hmm. with, or, different times of the day that people want to work, things like that. So a lot of these things are working.
Ash, I want to ask you the same question because you talked about how there are customers that will always want to speak to a person. And in Boston, where we have a lot of investment houses, institutions, we saw this huge rise in accounts during the pandemic. As people were there, they started to invest. And these companies would throw out big numbers. We're going to hire 15,000 more customer service agents, 20,000. That sounded great, but they actually couldn't hire that many people. Was HSBC in the same role, and are you using automation to both provide that personal relationship while you can't ever hire the amount of people that you want to hire?
Yeah, absolutely. The talent debate's been really, it's been a really interesting time. So I'm going to pull two things out of your question. So one was more broadly the challenges of the pandemic. That has been, if nothing else, a great lesson in the importance of properly managing the complex interplay between intelligent automation and expert humans. When we had to go remote with regulated workers who previously, especially our trading and some of our sales force, had never worked a day from home in their life.
Yeah.
And had to. And we had to make that work. And that trading especially is an area where we're quite used to balancing that interplay between automation and humans. But that was pushed even further, and we and many of our competitors and firms did a great job of managing that. I think it was a challenging time, but it taught us a lot. More specifically on the hiring front, it might be a surprise to hear me say, as the head of an AI team, we quite intentionally don't use much intelligence or AI in our hiring. I would say where AI has made the biggest impact is actually in providing an attractive workplace that people want to come and join. When we have, we're quite lucky to be a well-respected brand, and I get a lot of great CVs land on my desk. I don't have a problem finding people, but what's great is when we have those interviews and we have those conversations about what it's like to work here and problems people will be working on. I think they're some of the most interesting and challenging problems to solve. And we provide great tools and a great environment in which to do that research. And that's allowed us to hire quite strongly.
We have a great audience question from a customer, and I'm going to read it because it is complex. As an HSBC customer, the most automated part of HSBC I use is the automated call system, where it recognizes my voice and directs me to the relevant customer service. How does HSBC tackle data privacy and security? As with the rise of generative networks, it is becoming easier to replicate faces and voices.
That's a fantastic question, and we could do a lecture just on that.
So well, we have 8 minutes, so keep the questions coming.
Let me unpack a few key points. So one of them, data privacy and security. A huge challenge, and one of the most important things we have to face, especially 63 countries. That's a lot of different regulatory authorities to have to deal with. Everyone's got slightly different rules. That is our biggest spend and our highest priority when it comes to that. So it's a huge challenge, but it's invested in very heavily. I like the nod to the generative networks. Yes, there's technologies out there specifically designed to imitate people's images, videos, voices. The same technology can also be applied to discriminate and classify between real and fake, so it becomes a bit of an arms race. And we have a fantastic cyber team who are using many of the technologies mentioned and more to be able to identify those kinds of attacks. It's a huge area.
Yeah, it's amazing that we are talking, our biggest challenges that we are talking about now basically did not exist even a few years ago. And it's so interesting for me to speak with you because your role did not exist at the bank. When we're talking about head of AI, just think about that, all the upskilling that we need to do in order to stay relevant. Nilesh, I want to ask you a question. I'll probably ask the same one to you as well, Ash. When we are rolling out technology solutions, and we know that they are rolling out faster and faster and faster, in part because the data keeps growing, and the problems grow, and the challenges grow, and on the upside, business is growing. How do you get your colleagues, both your customers and your colleagues, to buy into new solutions? It reminds me of the hesitancy of when you get a new TV and you have a new remote that you have to figure out, how does this work? And there's a lot of resistance. How do you do that?
I'll probably say customers, employees, and then consumers. Starting with customers. So there are, and I talk to a lot of CIOs who have dedicatedly invested into the AI budgets year on year now. Why? Because they want to understand how their customers are looking at them as a brand, right? How do they feel? Secondly, and there is where they are willing to adopt AI. There is, in the last at least a couple of years, we are seeing more and more adoption of AI. When it comes to employees, it is clearly for them to buy into automation is, what's in it for me? How does it help my process or the work that I do, kind of go away? Is it repetition or tasks that are repetitive, mundane activities that go away with automation? Is that the benefit? Will I be doing more complex work? Will I be getting more face time with my customers? And then if you look at, consumers, because the consumers are end customers of our customers, what happens is there is still a mixed bag of reaction when it comes to AI. For simpler queries, they are, willing to talk to a virtual assistant, get answers to 40–50% of, straightforward queries that they have quickly, let's say through an assistant or a chat. But for complex queries, they still want to talk to a human, especially in customer services, right? So those are the kind of buy-in behaviors we are seeing from consumers, employees, and then the customers. And at the same time, if more on the consumers front, it's about data privacy also, because not very sure how my data is going to be used when I'm talking to, let's say, a bot, right? So these are the kind of feelings that we come across when either it's employees, consumers, or actual customers that we work with.
Ash, I'm sure you face that same challenge both internally and externally. Your customers asking, what about my data? And your colleagues asking, where is my data going? Is it protected? But let me ask you that same question altogether with, you sit in a tech role at a bank. How do you convince your colleagues that these tech solutions need to be adopted? And there's a lot of internal learning that needs to happen along with that.
Absolutely. There's so much in that, from technological to workplace to psychological. We'll try and step through some of them. So you mentioned that I'm a technologist in the bank. I do see myself as a technologist. But I sit in the business. I sit on the trade floor with our traders, and that's very intentional. The chief digital and data office that I sit in sits in our business, in our front line, because we want to forcefully blur the line between technology and business. What does that mean? That means increasing the technology empathy of our business folk and the business empathy of our technology folk, and working towards a point where that really is a strong and intentional overlap. So there's a cultural thing there. In terms of kind of adoption of a product, so let's say we've got something new and interesting that's of benefit and hopefully co-developed with our sales team, how do we get them to adopt that? Well, hopefully they've been brought into the engineering process from the start. They've developed it with us. It's not a case of us developing it for them. But also, I think fundamentally, you have to deliver obvious and measurable value from the start. And that value may be financial, it may be psychological or feeling-wise. I think some device manufacturers like Apple, for example, do a fantastic job. 5 minutes into your new Apple toy, you already feel good about owning it. Like, it's a good feeling. And you might not feel the economic or financial positive or negative impact of that for a while.
Because they're charging you monthly.
But you feel great straight away. And I think that kind of that initial hook of saying, look, here's how this is going to improve your job, improve your day, is super, super important.
Yeah, it's interesting they brought up Apple, because he so famously said, I am going to give you, or basically I'm going to sell you something that you don't even know yet that you want and need. And when I first got that phone, I was like, why doesn't it have buttons? And now you rely on it. Same way, never thinking about elevators until the one in my office building broke the other day and I had to climb up 28 floors. Wow. And then you realize technology does improve our lives, it saves us time, and it should run seamlessly. We are down below our final 2 minutes, so a very quick final question to each of you. It's something that I love to ask panelists like yourself. What is the big challenge you see just over the horizon that you want to deploy automation to help? Because it's probably a challenge that a lot of people here are going to face.
The adoption for now is still a challenge. There is some resistance still to AI, while a lot of customers want to go towards AI, get into cognitive automation, deep learning, and so on and so forth. So adoption is going to, in my opinion, going to take a little bit more time to kind of fully integrate into customers' businesses, leveraging technology solutions to perform those day in, day out activities and things like that. So that, for me, is still something that a lot of customers are still thinking about, right? That's what I would say quickly.
And Ash, your big challenge that you're looking ahead to?
I think for me it would be the democratization of intelligent technologies. And what I mean by that is, when I first came out of academia and joined industry 10-ish years ago, if you came across a business person with a challenge or opportunity, you needed to hire someone who had a PhD in machine learning, you needed to build a technology team around them to deliver that. And we've moved much closer to them being able to self-serve their problem. But I think automation itself and intelligent technologies can help bridge that gap and get to the point where non-experts are able to solve those problems for themselves. There's a bit of education and empathy there, but there's also technology solutions that can be delivered to help with that.